Hey, good evening and welcome. It's Sunday night. It's 8 o'clock UK time, and you are watching Let's Kill Twitter, the show that aims to detox your timeline with the art of conversation. I'm your host, Julian Hall, but as you know, I don't have to trawl through Twitter alone. And tonight we've got a fantastic guest from the US, Liz Miele. But before I introduce Liz, let's get a little bit of admin out of the way, probably more for my benefit than anyone else's. Obviously, we've been away for a couple of weeks, but it's great to be back. I won't lie, it was quite nice not to have to read Twitter every day. But I'm back in the saddle, it's all good. If you're watching us live, you'll be doing that from one of Facebook Live, Twitch or YouTube. The stream of the show will be available on YouTube and Facebook Live after the show. Please do watch it on YouTube though, it's a much better recording, and also you get the chance to subscribe to us, which would be fantastic. When talking about all things subscribey and followy, please do follow us on our Twitter account at LKTZoom, which is splashed liberally across this screen. It's on my little sign off here where my name is. It's obviously on the Twitter feed that is share screen beside me. And then there's a little ticker going above the top of the screen, which has all our links. It's also got Liz's Twitter handle at Liz Miele. So without too much further ado, I just want to introduce Liz, but actually with one more further ado, just want to say that we had experienced previously some tech issues, some gremlins. I have done everything I possibly can to move heaven and earth to iron those out. If you spot any, and you're a tech genius, please get in touch. But otherwise, it should be plain sailing, as it always is. So let's get stuck in. And before we bring Liz to the screen, I just wanted to mention that, I've had the pleasure of working with Liz. She's an absolutely fantastic comedian. She started doing stand-up at the age of 16 in New York City, originally from New Jersey. Profiled in the New Yorker magazine not long after she started stand-up, and at 22 she appeared on Comedy Central's live at Gotham. Other credits include This Week at the Comedy Cellar, Coming to the Stage, and Gotham Comedy Live. Got very happy memories of some of those comedy clubs. Liz has several viral videos on YouTube, Instagram and TikTok, including The Fabulous Routines, Feminist Sex Positions, Fuck Finland, and London Cops Are Better Than American Cops, which might also be factually true. There may be a league table on that to check. Liz tours regularly, and including internationally, and she has 3 albums out on Spotify and iTunes, and then she released her first special, Self-Help Me, in May of last year. That's free on YouTube, so go and check that out. Liz is also a published author with Why Cats Are Assholes, which is available everywhere, and has written and produced an animated series called Damaged, and co-produced and starred in 40 episodes of a web series called Apartment C3 with fellow comedian Carmen Lynch and fashion photographer Chris Vongzawat. Carmen will be known to our viewers, of course, from our episode back in February. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. So without too much further ado, let's welcome to the screen Liz Miele. Hello! Hi! Great to see you again. And as I was saying, I love the space age. It looks like you've basically torn something off C3PO or R2D2, I should say.
This is his baby. I stole his baby and now I talk into it. It's been quite devastating for the tech community.
The mystery is solved. Fantastic. So where are things at with you now? So there's been a lot of albums, and gigging's obviously back, and touring can be underway. Where are you at with things career-wise?
It's a little stop and go since things have kind of opened up in the US. Like, I have done a little bit of touring in April, a little more touring in July, and then I have some stuff in September and October, but it's also weird with the Delta variant, and things are just kind of weird right now. So I'm doing a lot of spots in the city. I'm writing, but I feel a little bit in limbo in a lot of ways.
So Liz, we've had our first freeze of the night. Could you start and stop your video again? I'm not quite sure what to do about this.
Yeah, am I still frozen?
Just at the moment, yeah.
Words, phrases.
So have a look. Let's just try.
Dancing.
So if you stop video, it might work out for us. Hopefully.
Stop video. Start video.
Yeah, we're back. You're back. I have to say this is somewhat of a mystery. So sorry to interrupt your flow.
It's okay. I don't know when it got frozen.
So we're basically saying that it's quite difficult. Obviously, with things got a bit snagged up with the pandemic, inevitably.
Yeah, unfortunately, things are a little stop and go. So I am touring a bit, but a lot of stuff is starting to cancel again. I'm doing spots in New York, and hopefully we'll be touring in like a couple of weeks. But it's I feel a little bit in limbo.
Yeah, it's true. It must be frustrating to be in that sort of limbo situation, sort of for a prolonged period of time. Because I mean, it's been a while, hasn't it, since we've been enduring this, really. What's the sort of situation over there in the States? Is it are regulations pretty much by state, or is everyone pretty much doing the same thing, or is it kind of over?
It's a goddamn mess.
Wow.
I feel very safe in New York in the sense that we have a higher vaccination rate, and comedy clubs were already vax only before they put a mandate, but the mandate for all indoor seating, for anything, stand-up, restaurants, whatever, started like a week ago. So now everywhere, if you want to sit inside, you have to show your ID and your vaccination card. So I've felt pretty safe here.
Okay.
But like I'm supposed to go to Texas where it's a free-for-all. They have low vax rates. There's no mandates. They're fighting it. So, Texas and Florida is just, and they're going, what New York was in March of 2020 is where Florida is. They actually say it's worse, which is crazy because we have solutions. So it's weird. It's very state to state.
Yeah, that's crazy, I have to say. I mean, so what's it's a weird sort of situation here. I mean, we are just all intents and purposes sort of back to normal, really. But viewers are reporting your audio is fine, but we're still having. I don't want to interrupt the flow too much. We're still having issues. We'll come back one way or the other. Thanks for doing that so quickly. So, what about social media, Liz? What about your life online? What's your kind of what do you interact with most? What do you enjoy most? How do you feel about Twitter and all the other sort of outlets?
I'm an Instagram person. I like taking pictures of my cat, other people's cats, stray cats. Like I'm like, if I could make money being a catographer, which is just a made up word for a cat photographer, I would. So I like Instagram because pictures are 1,000 words, and it's really like you have to be a real monster to be shitty to me because of my cat pictures. And then I put my stand-up up there and blah blah blah. But like Twitter, somebody tried to cancel me on Twitter a couple of weeks ago.
No way.
And I have a new joke about my skincare regimen. Mm-hmm. Like I have like all these jokes about skincare because I got locked inside for a year and a half and I had to look at my face and I was like, there should be some improvements. So I have all these different jokes about skincare, and one quoted Stevie Nicks, and I guess my quote was wrong, and I got harassed by Stevie Nicks fans. Harassed. And I probably blocked 100 people.
And this was just misquoting the line. I mean, was it misquoted in a way that sort of was just a very near misquote, or kind of?
It's just silly. So basically what you should know is the joke is about taking your makeup off at night.
Right.
And it's about me. But I basically say I haven't taken my makeup off. I didn't take my makeup off at night for 15 years, which is like really bad for you. And the thing that got me to start doing it is a couple years ago, I read an article that quoted Stevie Nicks, and she said, even when I did heroin, I still took my makeup off every single night. And then I kind of like, I shortened what my real joke is, but then I go, and now I do both. But basically, apparently she's never done heroin. She's just in a shit ton of drugs. So, you know what I mean? Like, okay. that's not the point of this. But also, I was yelled at for making fun of drug use, which is like not what I'm doing. I'm basically saying I'm making fun of the whole point is to be exaggerating to show that I'm such a gross person that even somebody on drugs took care of their skin and I didn't. Like, it's just people's perspective, but all these hippy dippy people that are supposed to have like good souls were basically like stalking my entire Twitter and basically saying what an unfunny bitch I am and how I should fucking die. And my mom made a mistake for having me. And I'm like, hey, you could not like the joke. You could be upset that I got the quote wrong, but like, that's not how you handle it. But they were harassing me it was for about 2 days.
I mean, okay, so first of all, I'm really glad that the full flow of that has actually happened in 3 dimensions we can actually see now. So that's brilliant because it's obviously quite an impassioned part. This was interesting. I didn't know this was happening. And a few things are sort of puzzling me here. Like, Stevie Nicks fans, more or less, would be of a generation that aren't necessarily going to react. Oh, well, maybe I'm being naive, but I wouldn't have thought they would have reacted like that on Twitter. I mean,
exactly, like fucking smoke some pot and chill the fuck out. Like, it's also, to me, they are defending a legendary millionaire and harassing a no-name comedian. Like, what's your logic there? Like, you're defending a woman that does not need your defending over a joke that, keep in mind, maybe 100 people saw. Like, it didn't do well. Like, it's just the logic of it. But I was like, what's your goal? Who are you protecting? And also, you're harassing. Like, I always like joke when a joke bombs. I always go, hey guys, let's remember I'm someone's daughter. Like, this isn't nice. Like, and that's kind of how I feel, where I'm like, what is your end goal? Like, you're basically saying you shouldn't joke about drugs or Stevie Nicks is, a saint or whatever. But like, you don't know anything about me. You're just literally being a bully to somebody else for somebody that doesn't need your protection. It was just insanity. But like, then they got mad that I was blocking everybody. And I was like, I have every right to block you. You're harassing me. I didn't harass anybody.
That's pretty. I mean, that is pretty grim times, I have to say. I mean, look, do you feel, and unfortunately, it sort of does lead to the rather age-old question of, is there a generational thing here with people getting triggered by stuff? I mean, particularly on the sort of the drug side of what you've, because some people have obviously gone for you because of the lyric side of it, but some people have obviously gone, on the drug side. And do you find that it's very easy to kind of set tripwires off now? I know comedians get asked this all the time, but
so it's about context. So it's easier to, let's say, get away with stuff or understand stuff or see the humor in it when you're literally in a building called a comedy club. So the context is, this is where comedy is. The point is for us to laugh. But when you put things online, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, wherever, you go to YouTube, you can learn how to fix your oven, how to tie a tie, how to make a bomb, and fucking see stand-up. So you don't know. So there's no context. You would think it says comedian Liz Miele, or you would see I'm in a comedy club in the video, or I'm holding a microphone. But the problem with Twitter is it goes, when my fans see it, they know my name and they know I'm a comedian. But once it leaves my fans, I'm no longer a comedian. People read it. Just like you can misinterpret a text. How many times have you gotten a text and you're like, are you fucking like, you're angry about it? And they're like, oh, I was just saying I'll see you tomorrow. I didn't know. It wasn't like see you tomorrow, slam of the door. It was see you tomorrow.
It's only when they say see you next Tuesday that's the problem over here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I just do the full abbreviation. But that's the problem, is that it loses context. Like, I remember somebody got mad at something I tweeted that did pretty well years ago, and I went, oh, sorry. I was like, I'm sorry you're taking this seriously. I'm a comedian. She goes, do you think that's an excuse? I was like, it's not an excuse. It's context. You know what I mean? Context is everything. If I see my sister and I was like, go fuck yourself. What are you doing? There's love there. But if I see a guy and go, fuck yourself, now that's a threat. Like, so they're reading comedy as judgment or mean-spirited, when this is a joke about me being a gross person, not about Stevie Nicks doing drugs. You're missing the point because you don't want to see the point. you don't want to be a part of that. And that's where, like, so I just block people. It's not my place to, I don't need to be harassed. It's not my place to judge. And I don't answer anybody anymore. I don't give context. I don't just, you don't want to know. So why bother?
So so you would previously you would have actually responded then, but yeah, that's quite a good policy not to.
Years ago, I would have, because I was naive. I would have been like, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's not. I feel like you're misinterpreting it." But as soon as you try to justify, people are like monster, and you're like, "I'm not. I didn't like molest somebody, and I'm trying to be like they wore a short dress. I'm saying it was a joke. It was always a joke." There's no, you know what I mean? Like there's no way of manipulating it, but they're making it look like I'm somebody that's trying to justify a crime.
Yeah, I mean it's tiresome. I mean Twitter can get tiresome. You know, I've had just a couple of weeks off, just generally. Well, I had a week away, and I took a few weeks away from Twitter, and to get back into it sometimes it can be painful. I mean, there's always something. There's always something that kind of saves it. It's this just sort of, you know, it can be this stream of kind of shite, and then all of a sudden something will come up, and you're just thinking, I'm so glad that I stayed for that one thing. But I mean, obviously, Instagram is a lot fluffier. You know, it's ideal for cats for a start. I mean, Twitter used to be quite good for cats, and it's still quite good for sort of animal antics. But the juxtaposition with everything else, it just makes it that more incongruous, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So, what's your sort of? Well, I mean, this is a two-part question, really. But what's your sort of biggest Twitter sort of altercation or sort of that you can recall?
Biggest what?
Well, but biggest sort of like, I don't know, sort of or biggest discussion that you've had on Twitter that kind of just went on and on.
I don't do that. You know, I don't. If I really think it needs justification, I will. But during like Black Lives Matter, like there was a couple of things on Facebook, because that's where real what's the word, decorum goes to die. I couldn't say, you know, Black Lives Matter and then have all this garbage under it and not defend it as a white woman, because people were saying some horrific stuff, and for me to just ignore it or delete it didn't feel like it did justification. So I had some back and forth on Facebook early, I would say like March, April, May of 2020, when things were really exploding with Black Lives Matter here. But after about one or two, and I'm a very angry person, but if we were to get into an altercation, either in person or online, I don't curse, I don't attack, I keep it within frame. And if I can't do that, I don't respond. So what happens is somebody doesn't like what I'm doing. They either start attacking me or they say something fucked up, and I treat them like a person. And when they start attacking me back, I stop. I go, you know what? This person is already in defense mode, but I make it so that if anybody ever screenshotted anything I said, they can't dismiss the fact that I was kind. I never name called, and I just gave facts and thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, and that's where I'll do a little bit of back and forth, because I think when someone's a fan of mine, I have an upper level in the sense of how they hold me, that I could maybe get through to them. And I had a friend, my neighbor, at the time I've moved, but my neighbor, Dean Edwards, Black man, there was a guy saying all these all lives matter stuff. And I was just giving context to let him know how dismissive it is, that all lives matter isn't the point. Of course, everybody believes all lives matter, but Black lives are being attacked, and this movement is called Black Lives Matter. And I broke down the whole thing, and I was very kind about it, and I had a little bit of back and forth. And then Dean went to this guy's page, saw that he reframed, and he goes, you know, somebody explained to me what Black Lives Matter means, and I got it wrong. And Dean was the one that texted me. He goes, look, you know, you might have felt like you wasted your time going back and forth with some of these people, but you got through to one guy. And I wanted to say thank you. And so that's where, like, again, I'll do my best to be calm. I'm not a calm person. I will never attack, because I don't think that's the right thing to do. I'll call up my friends and be like, this motherfucker, da-da-da-da-da. But I make a point, because you can screenshot everything, and I'm a public figure. I do not let anybody screenshot me losing my cool. Mm-hmm. And I also think that's how you should debate people, without name calling. And then if it gets to name calling, they're calling me names. I don't need to be a part of that. And I walk away from it. But that was one of the first examples of me actually diving into going back and forth with people where it actually had an impact. And I would not have known if my friend Dean didn't follow this guy's page and see that he changed the way he talked.
Yeah, that was a lucky discovery. I mean, it must take quite a lot of discipline, self-discipline, really, as a sort of self-confessed angry person. And you know, I'm pretty grumpy myself. It's quite hard to sort of not get triggered by social media, but I guess you kind of get used to it. And if you apply the same rules, as you say, to debate as responding on social media, you can skirt around it.
I'm also that person in real life. Like, you know, I have 4 siblings, and I won't attack them. I think I've called my sister the C word twice in my life, and it took a lot to get there. For the most part, she'll piss me off, and I'll be like, Emily, walk away. But I will, you know what I mean? And I'll let her know that it's not okay what's happening right now. But in general, like even with ex-boyfriends and all that stuff, I make a point that if I'm going to say something that can never be taken back, the same way I feel like a screenshot is forever there, you tell a loved one something that they'll always remember, you can't take that back. So I've always been pretty good at going, I'm triggered right now. I'm not going to be the best version of myself. Walk away and deal with it later. And I think if you apply that to the people you love the most, it's not that much of a shift to apply it to people you'll never see again. And I think it's good practice. I don't tell, you know, balls 4244 to fuck off. Maybe I won't tell my sister to fuck off. It's, you know.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's a system, I think, where you can actually, it sort of mimics the system of football, soccer, where you have a red card and a yellow card. And it's giving that sort of warning. So maybe there should be a selection of tweets that you can pin depending on what mood you're in. Walk away now. Have you got a favourite tweet of yours? Either one that did sort of particularly well or just one that you sort of sticks out?
Oh, crap. I wish there was a few, but they're like so old. I mean, it depends on how quickly the good ones go on Instagram, because I have a bigger following on Instagram than I do on crap. There was a brunch one that was like really good.
That seems to ring a bell, actually.
Yeah, that was probably the best one I ever had.
It's not got, you obviously not printed out and framed it.
No, I didn't. I haven't framed any of my tweets, but I do somehow. Oh crap! Hold on, I'm gonna give you. Oh, this one. No, it's not a good readable one. Give me 2 seconds.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'll just. Hello, Martin. Martin's one of our regular viewers. He liked your Stevie. Well, he enjoyed the Stevie Nicks story. Nixed by Nicks is his Martin's headline on that one. Cat pics always help. Hello, Pasta. Of course, Pasta's your cat, isn't it?
Yeah, Pasta. She's on a lot of drugs right now herself, because she had to drive 5 hours to get here. So she is chilling in my room, peeing on a towel, actually.
Oh, I tell you, there's something very relaxing about that, isn't it?
Good for her.
Yeah,
really.
Good for her. Totally. Nice warm towel. So what I'll do while you're looking for that as well, I'll line up your selected tweets, because they are... There's going to be a lot to talk about. Just let me think where we will start. Yeah, let's start with the big one, I think.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Here's my brunch one. I feel like brunch is the church of the millennial. It's something you get out. It's something to get you out of the house on a Sunday, and it costs 10% of your income.
Oh, brilliant! I'm going to find I'll chuck that one out on the timeline later as well.
Oh, who knows where that one is?
Yeah, somewhere. Oh, I'm sure I can find that in some kind of search engine, hopefully. So let's dig in. You've chosen 5 tweets for us tonight, and all of them have sort of pretty open-ended subjects to them as well, really. So let's start with this one from Mohammed Safar, human rights and environmental activist, and he has tweeted. In fact, actually, Liz, you read it out. Oh,
I'm a terrible reader, but I'll read it. Yeah. What I do want to say about Mohammed, he's a wonderful person. I love every single tweet, but also he has incredible eyebrows, and I think that needs to be equally as stated. This picture, you got to go to his Instagram. It's not doing justice. It's a beautiful man with a great heart.
Can't believe you're making me go to Insta, but
oh yeah, to literally stalk how hot this man is. But look at those eyebrows. Come on. It's a beautiful man.
Yeah, I think he'll be getting some thumbs up and some likes there. He'll probably be getting a few more followers now as we speak.
And then you follow his tweets and you're just like, oh my God, stunning and smart. Let's do this, Muhammad. Okay. If you are not a scientist and you disagree with scientists about science, it's actually not a disagreement. You're just wrong. Science is not truth. Science is finding the truth. When science changes its opinions, it didn't lie to you, it learned more. It was just so well said, because the truth of the matter, I'm getting so frustrated with people. You know, we have Fauci. I don't know who your person is in England, but like Fauci will go, this is what we know, this is what we suggest. And then they learn more and they go, actually, we think you should do this, or you don't have to do this anymore. And people are like, we got whiplash. We don't know what you're saying. And it's like, man, they're figuring it out in the go. Like, of course, some stuff is going to be wrong and some stuff is going to be not as severe as they thought it would. Like, that's what it is. We were all like wiping down our groceries at one point, and then they said, hey, you don't need to do that anymore. Or they said, hey, 2 masks might be better than 1 for X, Y, and Z reasons. Like, it just is so frustrating right now where people are like, these people, they don't know. And it's like, yeah, nobody knows. And then they learn and they test and they experiment. Like, did nobody take a fucking science class? Like, it makes me crazy. So I just thought this was so like succinct and brilliantly said. It's
I did like the sign off. You know, when science changes its opinion, it didn't lie to you. And you know, we had a very good example of that with the mask situation, because actually at the beginning, certainly over here, there were lots of virologists who were saying, look, you know, it's not really the mask isn't really worth it. And then obviously the advice has changed, and it is very, it's subject to everyone wearing it, and that's really sort of broken down now. There are masks that you can wear that are that will protect you, rather, you know, whereas the normal cloth masks are supposed to be a mutual protection thing, so obviously it doesn't work if the numbers don't work. I think it's true. I kind of understand this, and obviously that it's on the side of reason that I'm more comfortable with. But I think that one of the problems is that some in the eyes of some people, some scientists have built themselves up to be somehow unquestionable, or there's obviously been a bit of a problem with what's seen as catastrophizing in terms of numbers. We've had sort of projections in some cases that, you know, haven't come out. We've had a couple of scandals involving scientists as well who were obviously not following their own guidance, which that is a problem, obviously, when there's a kind of double standards involved. That's to do with the scientists and not the science, though.
Also every field has a piece of shit. Like, Cosby's a monster. Does that mean that I shouldn't be allowed to be around women or be a person? Like, you know what I mean? Like, every field has the people that make your field look bad, and that sucks, and especially when you're in a position of power. But here, to me, all he's saying is, for the most part, science is trying and learning, and you have to give room to breathe the same way. What do they say? Math is facts. Math is always 1 + 1 = 2. That's just how it is. But everything else is, you're figuring it out. Like, you're learning, you're understanding. There's still stuff about the body that we still don't know. So, you know, we have all this technology, and there's still there's certain organs that people are like, yeah, well, you don't really need it. We're not sure why it's there. Like, that's crazy. Like,
yeah, so I see your point. Yeah.
So it's just, to me, if you're not going to believe scientists whose whole job is to make these discoveries, why are you wholeheartedly believing somebody that just has a computer in a basement writing a blog? Like, I just, like, where is your barometer of truth then?
Yeah,
right?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think that I think the problem is that what that tweet is saying as well is there's a gestation period that you cannot just say something that is going to be right for all eternity. Things will evolve and all the rest of it. But I think that's also maybe a reflection on people's sort of attention span and need for sort of instant gratification. And it's such a kind of got what we call a gotcha. We have gotcha journalism, which as soon as somebody puts a foot wrong, everyone's sort of all over them. And that's, that's obviously what happens on social media. It's the pylons immediate.
Why wouldn't you go? They're going for the air of, like, they're going for care. Like, so they're going past what they think you should do because they're still learning. So, of course, they're going to kind of pull back a little bit. You'd rather them be extreme and say, hey, you need to Clorox your groceries, and pull back and say you don't need it, as opposed to them saying, hey, do whatever you want. And then you have what's happening in Florida right now, and people are just dying left and right, even though we have a vaccine, even though we have more understanding of it than we did a year and a half ago. So it's just like this inability to give people wiggle room as they're dealing with it in real time is insane to me.
So that's really,
sorry, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you want your surgeon to know what they're doing in the moment, right?
Yeah.
But if not, let's say something goes so wrong that you've never seen before, you want them to make some guesses, right? Like, you want them to try, or do you want them to just, I've never seen this before, let's let them bleed out? Like, you know what I mean? Like, people learn with things going wrong. Even our own lives are a depiction of that. You don't know how to do something comes up, you figure it out. They're doing that on a global scale.
Yeah, obviously, this particular tweet is sort of timeless and applicable to a lot of situations, but we're obviously going to see it through the prism of the pandemic inevitably, because that is what has literally brought science into our living rooms to some extent on a daily basis. But you just mentioned Florida, and that's interesting because I don't think I'm aware of that. Florida's been mentioned a lot, including by people over here, because the real tension is between the economy and health. And I know that, in the eyes of many people, you shouldn't make sacrifices. You shouldn't sacrifice people's lives for the economy, but there's been a very sort of... there's obviously been people saying at the same time, look, if we tank the economy, then people are going to suffer, and actually ultimately their health's going to suffer and all the rest of it. So I appreciate there is a pretty difficult balancing act going on.
But there shouldn't be a difficult balancing act when we have in the US more vaccines than we know what to do with, and half of it is fine, don't take the vaccine, fucking wear a mask. Like, that's what's crazy about it, is your life is changing this much and people are fighting it like crazy. And of course, everybody has tweets and examples of this, but we already have rules. If you don't wear a seatbelt, I don't know what it is in the UK, if you don't wear a seatbelt, you get a ticket. If you walk into a restaurant without shoes and a shirt, you're not allowed in. We have red lights and green lights and yellow lights, and they all have symbols, and you have to follow those symbols. Like, there's already things in society that, first of all, your kids have to have certain vaccines to go to school. When you go to college, there's more vaccines I had a friend that died of meningitis, which is something you're supposed to get before you go to college. Yeah. Then if you go to certain countries, there's certain vaccines you have to take. Nothing that's happening right now, regulations. When the aircraft is landing, you have to be seated with your seatbelt on. That's literally what you have to do that, or there's consequences. So that's all that they're saying with the mask mandate is, hey, to keep everybody safe, wear it. Let's say nobody got the vaccine, just fucking do the bare minimum. But Florida is going around saying, you can't make me. And you're like, that's fine, but you're killing everybody.
So has the death rate gone up in Florida then?
The COVID in Florida is as bad as it was, if not worse than it was in New York City during 2020, and we were an epicenter.
But has there been a kind of hospitalization and death rate increase to go with that? In
unvaccinated people, yes. So basically, if you're in Texas, Florida, I think Alabama and Mississippi, if you broke your leg right now or got in a car accident, there is nowhere for you to go. All the hospitals, there's no beds. And they're saying that for pediatric as well, so for children.
Right, okay, that's pretty dire. Well, it's interesting that we've mentioned Florida because I think I'm going to go straight to your tweet, which is actually about people leaving to go to Florida. Let me just unfreeze. I found a neat way of unfreezing you. I do not know why it's quite doing what it's doing. Let's go back to go. Here we go. Yes, Strategy Insider. This, if you just want to read that out, and we'll get into it.
New York City lost a net 200,000 people, mostly from higher income neighborhoods. If those New Yorkers didn't move upstate, they may have gone to Florida, which is now home to 64,000 more Big Apple transplants. I found this so funny. So we did lose a crap ton of people in New York City. I knew it was the rich people, because what you have to understand is it's so expensive in New York, and you're not buying space. You know, even rich people don't have the same amount. They don't have this big house. They probably might have a big condo. So what you trade in space, you make up for in culture, museums, you know, restaurants, Broadway, being around other rich people, whatever. But when you don't have that, you're just in a shitty city. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's so funny. They're like the homeless. There's so many homeless now. There's the same amount of homeless. Maybe there's a little bit of more homeless. It's just now you're not at work, and there's nothing balancing out this, what is a very dirty, very unorganized city. And I love my city, but it has its problems. So a bunch of rich people either went upstate or they went to Florida. And I found it so funny because, you know, 2020, New York City is fucked, and everybody goes to Florida where they can be outside. It's not as bad. And now all those rich New Yorkers are in the epicenter a year and a half later. And
but able to play golf, I suppose. You know? But able to play golf.
Whatever. I feel like we didn't, like, I know that their money helps our New York City economy, but I kind of was like, stay there. Like, there's a part of me that's like, don't come back. Like,
but I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, you think that? I mean, they took the risk to move, and maybe they had families. Maybe that was something that kind of makes it easier to stay there. But if you've moved out of somewhere, you know, the temptation to come, the pull of coming back to a capital city is usually quite strong. I wonder how many people will come back. Having said that, we've had, so obviously I live in London, so I totally get everything you just said about New York. I could more or less apply to London, but we have seen people working from home and therefore not commuting, because they're saving money. So, you know, they're not gonna come back to the city necessarily full time. Even if they come back to the office, I don't know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they may not come back the whole week. So it's feeling pretty normal. It does feel pretty normal out there, but I mean, I don't think it is exactly, you know, where it should be.
I'm interested to see how voting changes, because we lost a lot of people from LA and New York to Texas, to like Austin, like some of like the hipper cities or whatever. And then we had the power outage in the winter, and people didn't have heat for 3 days, and it was horrific. And then, you know, COVID spiking and all that stuff. And I'm interested to see the influences that happen on those states voting wise, when you have people that go from being in a city to being in kind of Florida, which is just a very different pace, a very different situation. And also seeing how both Texas and Florida have dealt with this. I mean, Ron DeSantis is getting so much pushback because he's ignoring the problem worse than even Trump was ignoring it.
Is that the governor in Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, people want their freedoms, but also this is undeniably bad. And people are really facing something where they're just like, okay, before it was like whatever's happening in New York or on the East Coast isn't our problem. Now it's on their doorstep, and people are like, oh, now I see it. Now I understand what's happening.
Well, I mean, do you feel different? You know, do you feel different in New York at all? I mean, does it feel different to you? Do you feel like you haven't quite got back to normal?
I'm going to answer that question in a second.
Yeah.
Also, it just makes me laugh really hard that the people that escaped, the people that left, and they like, because I was very much like, I flew from London because I was in the middle of a tour back to New York City, and I was like, don't have a pandemic without me. Like, I literally went into the epicenter. I flew into the epicenter to be there. So these people left, not real New Yorkers. They left, and now they've had 2 epicenters. They were both in New York City. So really, it's rich people that are the problem, and that everybody knows that. During the epicenter, like when the pandemic was like really bad, it was so weird. New York City felt like a small town. Like things that always had a line or a wait didn't have a wait anymore. And I was like, this is so creepy. I love this and I hate it. It's so, and you know, we need a crowd to do stand up, but it didn't matter at that point. Things are 70% normal in the sense that like crowds are pretty decent. It's vax only. You have to prove that you're vaccinated. There are still people wearing masks in the crowd, and I totally get that. I know the green room's vax only because we have to prove to the bookers that we're vaccinated. So I feel comfortable in the green room without a vax. All the staff are vaxxed. Like I feel really safe in New York City that we have a high vaccination rate, and everywhere I work is vax only. So I don't wear a mask as much as I used to, except for like the subway and going into stores. And then going to restaurants and stuff, again, there's this extra proof. You know, you got to show your ID and your vax card, but there's more outdoor seating. We're very European now, which is kind of cool. Every single restaurant has outdoor seating, and it's kind of fun. I mean, it's going to be cool because it's also, de Blasio is like, it's indefinite. So it's going to be around for a long time, or at least probably a couple of years. And there's something about something cool coming out of something really sad and scary. The other side of it is, you know, work gets canceled. I had a corporate gig that was going to like pay my rent, and because of COVID, it got canceled. And I'm like, shit, like a week before. And I'm like, oh God. So a lot of stuff is getting canceled. I am scared to go to Florida. I also feel mixed emotions because it was easy for me to cancel stuff for the safety of myself and other people when I was on unemployment, but that ends next week and there's no safety net anymore. So I'm going to Texas, which seems dangerous for me and for others. I'm hoping only vax people come, but I don't know. And then I feel some guilt, like maybe I shouldn't be going there. I'm a part of the problem, but I don't have an alternative.
Texas as stringent with the vaccine rule as they are in New York? No, okay,
not even close.
I mean, we're doing it here for clubs, for nightclubs, but we're not doing it for comedy clubs necessarily. Yeah. So, you know, we're sort of step behind you, you know, to some extent. Let's have a look. Oh, I did like that one. That's obviously we're sticking to a theme of sort of COVID vaccination. In fact, it's a perfect segue here from Julianne Simmons.
This just made me laugh so hard. As a woman who recently turned 40, I have a lot in common with the Pfizer vaccine. No longer seeking anyone's approval. Well said. Well said. It just made me laugh. I think there's something. I guess I'm 36, and I didn't
think you were 40. No.
Yeah, I'm not 40 yet, but I'm getting close. But I think as a woman in her 30s, I feel so much more comfortable with myself. I feel like I'm setting boundaries. I feel like I'm saying no more often. But it is kind of funny that I'm kind of where she is and the Pfizer vaccine, where I'm like, no, I don't care. Just like the story I said about blocking all the people that were upset about my tweet. I don't care. I'm blocking you because I don't need you in my life. I don't need your approval. I don't need to justify my jokes. You don't like me. I don't like you. So I'm walking away. You should have done the same thing. You don't matter. And I'm hurting no one. And I know that. So let's just walk away. And I feel that way with comedy. I feel that way with dating. I feel that way with friendship. I feel that way with, you know, what I do as a person. Like I know I'm a good person. I know when I make a mistake and I need to do better, and I know when something is either misinterpreted, but like there's this place where I used to just always worry how people were seeing me and if I did the right thing and if people care, and now I'm just like, do the best you can, make adjustments where you need to make adjustments, but you can't sit around and wait for people to accept you. Like, you're not 20 anymore. I
mean, that's really liberating. But as a comedian, is that something that, do you think that makes it more quick to get to that point? Because you kind of at some point have to kind of just think, I'm walking out here, I want to give you guys a good time, but, you know, I'm not going to get hung up if you don't. I don't know.
Well, in the beginning, you need some approval, both because that's the laughter lets you know you're doing it right, but then also you need it to go well so that you can get booked at clubs, get further in your career, make money, get an agent. Like there's all these things that are contingent on approval, as opposed to now when I bomb, sometimes it is my fault and I have to make adjustments, but a lot of times it's not. And I just have to be like, whatever, bad show, bad people, bad crowd, not my problem. You know what I mean? I came here because I want to entertain you. But if you don't want to be entertained because I'm a woman, because I look the way I look, because you don't like my jokes, that's on you, buddy. Like I brought what I was supposed to bring and you decided you didn't want it. And that's on you. That's like you ordered fries and then you decided I don't like fries. I'm sorry, you don't know what your stomach wants, but that's not my problem.
It's yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, I think it's quite, as I say, it's quite liberating to get to that point, I must admit. And that's one of the greater things about aging.
It's my favorite part. I mean, I think we put too much pressure on youth, clearly appearance wise, but even take out appearance, yes, there's some great young people with great ideas and whatever, but like I've always been frustrated with, especially in comedy, where newer acts, newer people are given way more TV time, noticeability, all this kind of stuff, when you're just like, this is about experience though. I'm a better comic, a better writer. I've had more life experiences. I know my voice. There's so many things about me as a comic today, 19 years in, that doesn't even come close to who I was 6 years in when I was doing TV stuff and more stuff was kind of going on. I like myself as a person better. I like myself as a writer better. I like myself as a performer better. And maybe I'm not the new hip comic, but I don't care anymore. I would never want to go back to where I was 6 years ago unless I had what I have right now.
Yeah, that's a very eloquent defensive experience, and so it should be, really. Yeah. So what have we got here? Oh, right, okay. This one kind of follows. It's kind of follows quite nicely from Ivy.
Half of adulting is basically you trying not to cry. I have a joke, actually, I think from the Edinburgh festival set I did about I only cry on the subway.
Yeah.
Like I basically have a joke. I basically say because doesn't it look like everybody just got broke up with on the subway? Like, isn't this just like a caravan of sadness? It's like, oh, you need $1, I need an explanation and a hug. I'm a crier. I'm slightly better now that I'm off birth control, but that's how I express myself. And I used to be embarrassed. I'm still a tiny bit embarrassed, but it's so like, to me, this is why this tweet exploded. It speaks to me on every level. I feel like I could cry at the hardware store. I could cry when I'm ordering a drink. I could cry when somebody gives me a compliment. I could cry. Like, it's taken a lot of therapy for me to just be like, maybe just smile or maybe excuse yourself, like to have other options other than crying. I'm a crier. There's a patch that I wanted to buy that says I cry a lot.
And this has been the case all the way through. We're not just talking about, I don't know, post-Trump.
No, I mean, so some of it's childhood trauma. That's some of it. I've always cried a lot, but even off birth control, which messes up your hormones, and then with therapy, which helped with childhood trauma, I'm not as bad as I used to be, but I'm always just right there. Crying is always just kind of sitting on my shoulders.
But and that's just as I mean, that's obviously in reaction to something sad, but also as a release to something that is actually unexpectedly pleasant or whatever it might be. Or
I'm
gratitude.
very emotional. Yeah. I'm just an emotional person. And my sensitivity is also the reason I notice things and I'm observant and I can notice when a friend seems slightly off and pull something out of them to know that they're not okay and they need help or whatever. So my sensitivity has also made me a good friend and a good comedian and just somebody that sees parts of life that other people wouldn't see. But also, it makes me the first person to cry, and often crying on the subway.
Oh yeah, no, of course you were the cast of your own joke there, definitely. So speaking of jokes, it's a pretty brave one in some ways, but also extremely effective. Anthony DeVito, I don't know, but I'm going to follow
Oh,
him
he's a good
now.
friend of mine. He's a brilliant comedian in New York, and this was so, when something's so perfectly worded that you're like, damn. Like I read it, it was like, damn, and then I read it again. He hit it. Okay, so weird we can't get half the country to take the vaccine. We're usually so good at mass shootings. That is a perfectly written tweet, joke, idea. So good. It's just good.
It is fantastic. So neat. And it's also, it takes something that's it's obviously it's controversial and it's upsetting and all the rest of it, and you have to be quite careful about how you joke about it, but it's there to for a message which is, obviously also quite important. It's a sort of impeccable piece, isn't it, really?
It's just, to me, that's art. Like just like a slow clap. Like what? Oh, thank you. And he's a great writer. I mean, this doesn't surprise me at all. He's just a brilliant writer. But it's also like it makes a valid point, which is like, what do you mean we can't get vaccinated? This is crazy. But also, of course, we can't even. We've had so many mass shootings, and we are a mockery in the entire world. And everything we do is just sad. Like, come on.
Yeah.
The same way that everybody should be vaccinated right now is the same way that we should not have had any mass shootings in the last 15 years, yet we can't get anything done in our country.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that's, I don't know how far up the agenda that's going to be, but Biden, but there's only so far that anyone's been able to sort of go with that, and it's tragic, really. I mean, obviously we've had a lot of, I'll try not to totally end on this, but we've had quite a lot of, in terms of news, from my perspective, it's been sort of years and years of Brexit, Trump, and then there's been the pandemic, and then of course the big news of the last month now really has been Afghanistan, and you may well be aware that Biden, I know Biden's getting stick in the US of his, but he's also getting stick from various journalists here. What's your take on it?
So this is the thing, and rightly so. But why can't we? I just never understood how anybody, like, okay, look at yourself as a person. You might be a great friend, but a horrible husband. And you might be a great husband, but a horrible provider or business person. And you might be a great business person, but a horrible father. Whatever it is, yes, you would like somebody to be all-encompassing good, but there's some places where people are good and bad. So he did a great job with the vaccine rollout. He's doing better than what definitely had happened under Trump, and he inherited a shit show. And so, yes, he's made missteps with Afghanistan, huge, big, catastrophic. But you can't completely be like, well, fuck this guy, when, you know what I mean? Like, first of all, I can't even imagine everything he has to do the cleanup of the last 4 years. But also, I'm not saying to ignore this, and this is upsetting, but like, I just don't understand how people are like, what? Like, just when you're just like, he's dealing with 17 catastrophes at once.
Yeah, there's a lot of mopping up to do. I mean, we could spend a whole show.
And he's not the only one making a decision. So it wasn't just his fuck up, it was his entire team's fuck up. So really, let's look at them and be like, how did everybody miss this? How did everybody do this?
Leaving all the military equipment there was obviously one of the biggest kind of doo-doos, as it were. But anyway, listen, we could sort of get to. I was just wondering, have you seen do you aware about the Nirvana story? Have you seen the
baby is suing them for exploitation, like.
It's sort of almost on a sort of pornography level as well, because the private parts were sort of exposed. But this guy, so I've chosen this tweet from an account called Bad Spit. The guy who was the baby on Nirvana's Nevermind album cover certainly worked overtime through the years to remind us he was the baby on the Nevermind album cover. So there's all these photos of him doing these sort of kind of press stunts as through the ages of him being on the cover. So he's really made, he really did make a name for himself from this. But there are some, you can retrospectively go back and say that was probably not the greatest decision. Apparently, the parents didn't. I mean, they obviously gave some kind of consent. I don't know how vague that is. That's obviously going to come out in court. I don't think there was an awful lot of money changing hands at the time. I think it was quite a sort of nominal sum. So I guess, this is a way. He's picked a time. His advice certainly has picked a time where we're going to be much more sort of sensitive towards this kind of argument, I suppose. Well, I don't know. He's obviously being advised that it's legitimate for him to bring this argument, and he may be onto a winner, as it were.
That's crazy to me. Also, somebody made a point. It's not my point, but somebody made a point that's like, you don't sue them, you sue your mother. Your mother approved of that. Yeah. Your mother said that was okay. Like, like, it's a little bit like, that's bad parenting. That's not, I don't know. Like, I just, one, your body doesn't look like that anymore.
Yeah, and it's not recognizably you anymore, Yeah,
no, he's the one, like this tweet says, that's been reminding people that that's him.
I mean, the thing is as well that I think someone's made the point that having a hang-up like this, or having a focus on this, obviously it was, seminal album cover and all the rest of it, but having a focus on this particular event in your life and revisiting it all the time is going to stop you moving on and doing something that is you. That you generate. So it's, but I suppose if you want the kind of points for basically getting a lot of mileage over one event is essentially, I suppose, the most charitable thing I could say. But yeah.
What's funny is I think he's emotionally stunted in suspension, just like this picture. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's just, this was his 15 minutes of fame. And it's when he was a baby, and it's because it's this famous album cover by this famous band in this provocative way.
Yeah, it's a strange one, I have to say, in a week of pretty strange news, and also just for a very British story. I'm sure. Well, actually, gosh, no, I can't. Obviously, I can't go through this week without mentioning Charlie Watts as well. Obviously, and the British comedian Mark Thomas. I love this tweet. The thing I loved about Charlie Watts, apart from the eloquence and inconspicuous perfection of his drumming, was that he held the Stones sound together whilst looking like he was wondering what was for tea. And he absolutely did. He had that sort of mildly distracted air about him, very in control, but also just somewhere else. And then Joan Armour Tradings tweeted, Mark Nelson, the comic, something similar as well. Basically, where's James gone? Why am I crying? Because Charlie Watts has died. Who knew that any of the Rolling Stones musicians would ever leave this earth? Which I think is a lot of people for a lot of generations that resonates. And Scottish comedian Mark Nelson, rather piffily as ever, Christ, when the Rolling Stones start dying, you realise we're all buggered. R.I.P. Charlie Watts. And it's almost like a kind of firewall almost, I think.
Well, first of all, about him always kind of seeming like he's thinking about something else. I mean, that's like all artists. I don't feel like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like like when you're a creative person, you're never really focused on what you're doing. You're always just somewhere else. And I mean, I think now there's all these books and podcasts and talked about what it's like to be an artist and how do you create and da-da-da-da-da. And it can be pulled apart in any which way, but this is going to be a very weird example. But they say a lot of drunk drivers, when they get in car accidents, always survive because they're all like loosey-goosey. Mm-hmm. And that's, and that's what you could, but if you're stiff, you know what I mean? Things break and blah, blah, blah. And there's something about an artist where we're always a little drunk and we're always surviving. Is that a weird kind of thing? You know what I mean? Like, they're fucking old as shit. They did all the drugs. They who knows? But like, they've always just been they're in their own, they're not stressing about stuff. If they are, they're taking drugs to not stress. They just kind of did their own thing. And it feels like artists are these drunk drivers that like everybody's like, don't live like that. But they're always the ones that are like making cool stuff and surviving. That's probably one of the weirdest analogies I've ever given, but I stand by it.
It's no, it's interesting though. It's a good sort of identification of the tribe of the artist. That's brilliant. Well, so I'm just going to an honourable mention to British comedian Callie Beaton. If I can find your tweet, we've got a cabinet minister over here called Michael Gove, who was quite instrumental in the Brexit. Very instrumental in the Vote Leave campaign, and he's recently split up with his wife, who is journalist. And Callie Beaton tweeted, Michael Gove just tried to match with me on a dating app. What a time to be alive. So I thought that was a bit of a shock. And actually, there's a story today, Michael Gove basically going raving in Aberdeen. People may well have seen the footage of that. But that's brilliant. We've kind of literally come into land dead on time, which is fantastic. So I wanted to get all your tweets in. So I'll just sort of wrap up, and we can wave goodbye to our streamers. If you want to follow Liz on Twitter, it's at Liz Miele, which it is also on Insta, isn't it, Liz? I think it's the same thing.
Everything's at Liz Miele.
Everything's at Liz Miele, which is brilliant. What's your next kind of gigs, appearances, tours? Where can people get your content next?
So I have 2 out of 3 of my free hours free on YouTube. So my special Self-Help Me is free on YouTube, and then my first hour ever, Emotionally Exhausting, is also free. Then the hour I did when I was in Edinburgh, with you guys. I got yelled at for months. And you got to throw it away, Liz. Throw it away. Edinburgh. I haven't said that in years. Edinburgh. That one you can pay for a stream called Mind Over Melee. But honestly, I'm touring in the US. I was in the middle of a European tour when all this stuff happened a year and a half ago, and I haven't been able to reschedule. So I got to Paris and London, but I had to cancel like Germany and wherever else, Switzerland or wherever else I was supposed to go, Sweden. So Europe, I have no idea when I'll be back, but US, I'm doing some tour stuff, and then hopefully I have a new hour since my special, and hopefully I'll be able to make that into a special soon.
Oh, brilliant. That's a full play. That's excellent. Well, I've got to say that first off, talking into the severed limb of R2D2 has worked a treat, because the audio has been fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm very relieved to say that you were visible and moving 85% of the time. It was getting a little bit hot under the collar earlier. I will have to find out. I don't quite know what is going on there, but anyway, I found a little hack, I guess. And also, please, if you've enjoyed this, that's great. Please do follow us on Twitter. If you follow us on YouTube, you can see all previous shows and clips as well. We'll be uploading this show. I'll be doing the descriptions properly later, and it'll be available to view afterwards. We'll also be doing a podcast of it, and I'll be doing clips just as soon as I can. I'd say, Liz, it's been amazing that you've put so much passion into this, given that you have just moved house. I don't know how you did that, but thank you. So
thanks.
No, thanks so much. And guys, thanks for watching. So we'll just wave goodbye to our streamers. Please come again next week when we'll have Meryl O'Rourke with us. All right. Cheers, guys. Bye. Take care. Bye.